For most of us, our familiarity with Sega started with the Genesis. This is the system that went toe-to-toe with Nintendo, leading Sega's entry into the console wars of the 90s. Of course, if you're really a Sega fanboy, then you know that the Genesis was not the first Sega system to be sold worldwide. Not even close. That honor goes to the Sega Master System, and its story is an interesting one. While the Master System gained a foothold in some parts of the world, it was never able to compete with Nintendo in the two biggest video game markets at the time, North America and Japan. It was innovative in many ways, but it failed to innovate in the one area that really matters the most to any successful console: creating good games. At the same time, the relative success of the Master System may have been its biggest legacy. It created a platform and internal expertise that allowed Sega to create the Genesis, the machine that came closest to breaking Nintendo's stranglehold on the market at the time. Let's talk about the Master System. Sega started in 1940 as a slot machine making company. The business evolved over time, ultimately selling jukeboxes, photo booths, and eventually arcade games. The arcade games were a commercial hit. Sensing the ability to make a profit, Sega pivoted to video games, and specifically the home console market. The SG-1000 was Sega's first home console, released in 1982 alongside other machines like the Atari 7800 and the Famicom. Of course, Nintendo would be the dominant console of this generation, but the SG-1000 made its mark. It was enough of a success to result in the sale of multiple other home consoles, including the SG-1002 and the SG-3000. Of course, these machines fell short. While they sold well, they couldn't compete with the Famicom, which dominated sales in Japan during this time. Indeed, in 1985, the Famicom was believed to control up to 90% of the home console market, a seemingly insurmountable lead. Still believing that there was an opportunity in video games, Sega designed and released yet another console, the Sega Mark III, which you may know as the Master System. The system was released in Japan on October 20th, 1985, which, coincidentally, is just 2 days after the Nintendo Entertainment System first went on sale in Europe. The system was basically an improved version of the SG-1000 and SG-1002. It contained 8 kilobytes of RAM, 16 kilobytes of video RAM, and a 256 by 192 resolution, which allowed for 32 colors to be displayed on screen. It ran on a Zilog Z80 processing chip and contained 128 kilobytes of memory, which meant that it actually had twice the available memory as the Famicom. The console was redesigned in order to improve upon already existing technology, and the team that worked on the new system included Hideki Sato and Masami Ishikawa, who worked on the initial SG-1000 line. In the first few months after its premiere, the console performed not great. It moved around 100,000 units, which wasn't bad, but certainly wasn't enough to make a massive splash. The struggles of the system occurred for reasons that will almost certainly sound familiar to you if you know anything about video games. There were only 2 games at launch, Hang On and Teddy Boy, and only 9 games by year's end. This was, in part, due to Nintendo's particularly strict licensing system, which banned games from appearing on multiple consoles if they appeared on the Nintendo. More importantly, the Mark III was released more than 2 years after the Famicom. Despite being a more powerful system than the Famicom, Nintendo's lead was simply insurmountable. However, the video game market was changing. Nintendo had broken into America, shaken off the ghosts of home consoles past, and started to sell successfully in the country. Ready for their next steps, Sega looked across the Pacific Ocean. Its previous systems had all been released in Japan only. As such, moving to America, like Nintendo had done earlier, would be a first for the company. Sega of America was formed in 1986 with the express goal of managing and expanding Sega's growing home console business. Priority number 1, get the Mark III into America. Of course, that had to start with a pretty major redesign. After all, no one knew what the Mark III was, and there was little Sega brand awareness in general. Sega surmised, correctly, that they would have to change the name. That they did, but not to the Master System at first. Instead, the Mark III's first new name was the Sega Video Game System, yes, very similar to the Nintendo Entertainment System. The packaging was also redesigned from the Japanese version, with the colors changed to a white grid that was inspired by Apple. Sega had a $9 million marketing budget, which was very, very low compared to Nintendo, but, not nothing. This new system made its re-debut to the world at the 1986 Summer Consumer Electronics Show, where it premiered in a 1,800 square foot booth. The system was well received and won a Design and Engineering Award at the event. As part of their marketing budget, Sega designed 2 systems for sale in America. The first was the Sega Base System, which sold for $139 and came with a console and controller. The second, more expensive package was the Sega Master System. That sold for $149 and came with 2 controllers and a light phaser, which was basically Sega's light gun. That system was far more popular, and so was the name. The system made its North American debut in September 1986 and sold 125,000 units. Not great, but not bad, and it's worth noting that it sold more units in its first 4 months than the Atari 7800 did in its first 6. Of course, these numbers were still a drop in the bucket compared to the 1.1 million units that Nintendo sold. This success was mirrored in Japan. By the end of '86, the Master System had sold around 1 million consoles compared to the 6.2 million Famicom units sold. By the middle of 1986, 19% of Japanese households owned a Famicom, with a much smaller percentage owning a Master System. Much of Sega's controllers and accessories were kind of rip-offs of Nintendo, such as the Light Phaser, but Sega did offer some new devices with some pretty innovative material for the time. For example, in 1987, Sega released their Sega Scope 3D glasses, which were active shutter 3D glasses. They worked by opening and closing lenses quickly to create a 3D effect, and played 8 games, including Line of Fire and Zaxxon 3D. Despite these innovations, 1987 was not much better for the system in North America, and it failed to move the number of units that Sega was hoping. According to those who worked for Sega at the time, there were a few reasons for this, including the previously mentioned licensing struggles with Nintendo. Sega continued to fail to develop relationships with third-party developers. Their first third-party game didn't even come out until October 1987, and that meant that the game library was slow to develop. Sega developer Mark Cerny also noted that games had a strict 3-month deadline, which affected their quality. The Master System did find success in converting its arcade titles to Master System games, with games like Space Harrier, Outrun, and Afterburner proving popular. Still, these games didn't do enough for the system. Sega was frustrated with the lack of sales for the Master System and began to divert dollars to other projects. As a result of this lack of investment, Sega sought other marketing opportunities for the console. That resulted in Sega signing an exclusive deal with Tonka, which kind of helped kill the system. Tonka, a toy giant in North America, was hired to distribute the device. As a toy company, Sega felt that it might have more success in getting the device into the hands of consumers. Sega also wanted to take advantage of Tonka's already existing relationships with major retailers, as they continued to struggle to get the device into stores. This was a similar tactic to what Nintendo did when the company partnered with Worlds of Wonder in 1986. The Tonka partnership wasn't a great one, although it did come with some successes, at least at first. Tonka did initially spend $30 million to market the system, leading to an increase in sales. Furthermore, Tonka owned Parker Brothers at the time, and the company did create some Master System exclusive games, including Monopoly and Montezuma's Revenge. The problem: Tonka was a toy company with zero experience with electronic games, which were clearly different than toy trucks and bulldozers. Tonka proceeded to make a number of poor strategic decisions. They did not localize numerous popular Japanese games, they didn't invest in the necessary hardware to make more cartridges, and they reduced their investment in video games in 1987, not even mentioning the Master System in their '87 toy catalog. One potential reason for these challenges: the company took out huge loans in 1987 to purchase rival Kenner Toys, then struggled with their overall finances as a result of poor sales. In other words, Sega invested in the wrong horse to sell their systems, and the Master System suffered as a result. Meanwhile, Sega also released the Master System in the rest of the world with wildly different results. 1987 saw the launch of the system in Europe. Sega originally hired 3 different distributors to distribute the system throughout Europe. However, problems plagued Sega, which failed to manufacture enough systems to meet demand, causing major difficulties for their distributors. By 1988, Virgin Mastertonic, which had purchased Mastertonic, took over distribution for the Master System throughout the entire European continent. From there, things went better. While Nintendo was firmly established in North America and Japan, they had failed to make similar gains in Europe. As a result, Virgin Mastertonic and Sega were able to expand their footprint without the threat of Nintendo's competition. Success breeds success, and as the system sold more units, more European developers signed on to develop games. Virgin Mastertonic continued to expand sales of the system, offering rentals and creating a Master System Video Championship Series. As a result, the Master System beat Nintendo in terms of units sold throughout the late 80s in the United Kingdom. That winning streak continued into 1990 when the Master System was outselling the Nintendo. That year, the Master System sold 915,000 units in Europe compared to 655,000 units from Nintendo. And then we get to Brazil. And if you want to talk about weird, thanks to a variety of deeply unique circumstances, the Master System became the most popular home console in the country for decades. Yes, decades. The Master System was launched in Brazil in September 1989. It was distributed by Tectoy, a Brazilian company, which had success in distributing electronic toys, including a learning aid and laser tag system. Tectoy went to work distributing the system, and arguably had more success doing so than any other third-party distributor. Thanks to Tectoy's experience in Brazil, electronic toys, and in working with Japanese companies, Tectoy was well prepared to make the Master System fly off the shelves. Other unique factors helped. Chief among them was Brazil's economy. The country had incredibly high tariffs, so any imported toy was much more expensive. Tectoy was able to circumvent these tariffs by making the system locally. That kept the Master System much more affordable. By the end of 1990, barely a year after Tectoy had first distributed the system, the company had helped to sell 280,000 units. Keep in mind that Sega had this massive market to itself. Nintendo didn't enter the country until 1993. With the Master System on fire, Tectoy went to work at marketing the device further. They created a Sega Club, a tip hotline, and offered game tips during commercials for popular shows. Tectoy would also localize games in Portuguese, giving the games a local feel and ensuring that Brazilian customers were playing with their version of a game. Tectoy would later say that they worked with more than 50 third parties to license games. When most countries moved on from the Master System, Brazil went further, converting Game Gear games to the Master System and then creating the MegaNet, which was a phone line and internet-based gaming system. All of this meant that the Master System continued to sell. As a result of this excellent local handling, the Master System is, believe it or not, still sold in Brazil today. Yes, the format has changed, and today it's sold as the Master System Evolution, which is basically an emulator package that comes preloaded with 132 games. As a result of the success in Brazil, the Master System holds a distinct place in history. It is the longest-selling, consecutively sold home console system ever. Meanwhile, back in Japan, the Master System was relaunched in October 1987. The Mark III was gone, and the Master System was now the name of the system across the world. However, the device didn't make the impact that it needed to in order to threaten Nintendo's worldwide dominance. Sega was only able to break into about 10% of the home console market in the country. It also ran into other competition, including the PC Engine, which was actually the first ever 16-bit system. That console was released 2 weeks after the Master System. Ultimately, the Master System did not hang on as long as the Nintendo did. Its final official game was Bomber Raid, released in 1989. Sega didn't completely let go of the system, and in 1990 released the Sega Master System 2, a remodeled and improved version of the original Master System. That version was able to extend the life of the system a little bit and helped ensure that the Master System sold more units in Europe. In the end, the Master System sold between 10 and 13 million units. It did not make as much of an impact in Japan or North America, which remained the near-exclusive province of Nintendo. In those countries, the Master System sold an estimated 2.5 and 2 million units respectively. However, the Master System did do much better in places like Europe, where it gave Sega the advantage over Nintendo for some time. 6.8 million units were sold in Western Europe, and around 8 million units were sold in Brazil, which is where a majority of Master System sales occurred. The Sega Mega Drive was released in October 1988. Sega's next-generation system was much improved on the Master System and was Sega's entry into the 16-bit market. Of course, you probably know the Mega Drive better as the Genesis, but that's a story for another video. The Master System was not a system I had, but if you did, what did you think? Did you like it? Why do you think it couldn't make it in as many places as Nintendo? As always, I would love to hear your comments below. More importantly, if you like this video, and I certainly hope you did, please do like, subscribe, or click on the next video that the almighty algorithm wants you to see. Furthermore, if you want to support this channel even more, I would love it if you considered becoming a member. Doing so gives you access to exclusive content, chat options, and shout-out. And thank you so much to Christian Villegag663 and Justin H. Miles for signing up as members. Yay, Christian and Justin! Have a wonderful day out there, friends. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I like making it. Take care, everybody.